Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are on this beautiful planet. My name is Katana Malinowski, and I am the host of Transformational Art with Katana, making the unmanageable manageable. Welcome. And today I have with me my friend and co author, Ashley Holmes. She is an international best-selling author and holistic fertility coach. Thank you for being here with me today, Ashley.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's an honor to be here with you and
Yes.
celebrate our success.
Yes, we have had quite an amazing, spectacular, phenomenal weekend. All those words that I said, I couldn't quite put what it was. We're both co-author in a book, Sacred Surrender, with Divine Destiny Publishing, and we reached #1 international best-selling, and it's an amazing feeling. And we are going to build on that. Would
Absolutely.
you like to share with the audience who Ashley is as a person?
I am a very heart-centered, soul-driven entrepreneur because I feel like our toughest moments really make us who we become. And it's only through, going through that darkness that we can then find the light and then share that light with others.
Yeah, that definitely resonates with me. That's how I got to doing what I do with transformational art and helping people find their inner strength so they can live with more joy and peace. Everybody has a purpose. I believe that there's more good than bad in the world. And so it is fun to do these things and learn from our difficulties so that
Definitely.
we can help bring people along and light their lights and help them get the positive outcome from their difficulties as well.
For sure. And I think it's nice to realize that you're not alone and that there are people like you with the same, challenges that they're experiencing as well, and that there is support and resources available to you if you're open to receive them.
Yes, absolutely. It all comes down to willingness. Once you're willing and open, everything good can come to you at that point. Everything good can come.
Yes, the universe shows up.
And so my next question for you is, what is it that makes you happy?
My children absolutely light me up, and if you're ever, not being present, they call you on it. And like my son said to me, this was his line for a little while, and it was like, wow, like you are such a wise little soul. It's unbelievable, because he'd be like, Mommy, are you happy as can be? And I would stop and I'd be like, because it's when I wasn't being present. He would always catch me when I was, in my thinking mind. And it was like, could I be happier in this moment? Of course I could. Absolutely. Thanks for, bringing me back into this present moment.
Yes, children have a way of being in that choice point moment more than when we become adults.
Yes.
And they stay in that freedom of okay, choice point. Every moment is a moment to explore, be curious, and be adventurous. And I really believe that helps people, particularly children, and we have a lot to learn by going back to our childhood in that regard, specifically in that space, because when we can bring creativity, adventure, curiosity, and that freedom to be childlike and play, we open up so much possibility for all the good that can be.
I agree 100%. And I'm just so grateful that, I have that in my life, it's like, come and do this, let's do this. And they think so creatively and always have. And I've always just embraced that. I'm like, no, you don't need to fit into a box. You don't need video games. You don't need all this stuff. Use your imagination, create. And they are so creative.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes, I practiced that with my children who are now adults, and now I have grandchildren. And one of the things, I love to create all the time. I'm a child at heart, always will be. So popping up the living room tent, making a tent out of tables and chairs, or you know, um, turning a box upside down and cutting a hole in it so it can be a car or a bus, and just all of these fun things that childhood allows us to open up and stop to smell the flowers. I always imagine the child that stops to look at the flower. And that leads me back to when I actually was coaching one summer. I took on two baseball teams so that the program wouldn't shut down for the summer. And I had my daughter's age. So I had kindergartners through about second grade. And I remember seeing the one boy out in the field, and my outfielder. And when the ball was coming at him, he was busy looking at the dandelion with the bee on it.
Oh, that's so precious, though.
And you know what? It was okay. And we all, people are yelling at him, get the ball, get the ball. And I took that moment to recognize that, you know what? He's actually getting some really good enjoyment out of just watching that bee on that flower.
Yeah, for
And,
sure.
may everybody have that space where they recognize the bee on the flower in the lawn.
Yeah, there's so much beauty and, available to us when you just stop and, take that time and give yourself that space. Instead
Yeah.
of all this hustle and bustle and rush and go, 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 like that's truly what my chapter in Sacred Surrender was. It was how surrendering brought so much more into my life than trying to force and make things happen. It's the exact opposite, even though that's not typically how we're raised or what society or our culture is telling us.
Wow, that's awesome. Because the other thing that play and not pushing ourselves does is it reduces our stress levels.
For
So
sure.
we're reducing cortisol, we're improving our sleep, we're improving our health by being in that mode where we're able to relax and recognize those good things in the moment.
Precisely. That is why I have become a holistic fertility coach, is because the stress that process has on your body is massive, and to not acknowledge that and to not deal with it isn't helping you. And when you can actually know how and feel how it is to come out of flight or fight mode and your nervous system into rest and digest mode, it's like, wow, I have been like living like this for too long. This is my natural state. This is how I'm supposed to feel and be. And you begin to want and crave and bring that into your life more and more.
Mm, well said. And that leads me to my next question, the converse of this. What is it that makes you sad or angry?
Injustice really, makes me. I've always been one who thinks that everything should be fair. And that's not the way that life always shows up, right? And but it's deep seated in me. And I really try to give that. I have twins and they're very competitive. And I'm like, life is not a competition, but I'm always trying to make things fair for them, right?
Yes. And this is a conversation that comes up a lot, actually, with so many heart-centered leaders, and injustice is a common theme. And I like that because it means that what my gut intuition is that the majority of the world has good and hopes for the light to shine through.
Yes.
So that intuitive hit is being validated each time I hear someone talk about injustice. And I wanted to visit this a little bit while you have this forward, because we talk about fairness and how life isn't fair. However, with that being said, there are ways that we can make things less difficult. So it doesn't necessarily have to be fair,
Yes.
because if we give people tools and then we give people opportunities, it's still up to the person to make those choices that are going to either empower them or disempower them, you know. And I was thinking about that, and fairness, there's so much food. For example, 1 in 5 children in the United States is hungry, and we're not even counting the adults, we're just counting the children. 1 in 5 is hungry, and we have more than enough food on the planet. We're actually throwing more away than we're feeding people with. That is unfair. And that is something that can be changed. Whereas, you know, being born into a family that's financially impoverished, or being born into a family that's financially well off, that's a type of fairness that we can't control. So I guess what I'm trying to get to is those things we can and cannot control.
Yes. And it's just being able to have peace with whatever is showing up in your life. And, for a long time I didn't. And that's what yoga meditation gave me. And that's why I'm so grateful for it, because I was so resistant to everything that happened that I didn't think was fair or right, or that I didn't choose, right? If I chose it, it was fine. If I was in control, it was fine. And if I wasn't, and that's just not the way it works. So it really, changed my mindset and gave me just a step back and an eagle-eye view of my beliefs and my habits and patterns that really weren't serving me, and the opportunity to shift and change those.
That's wonderful. Yes. And you just brought up a good point, which is it's what we can and cannot control. And then our choices with those, knowing that. So if we know that, for instance, when I was younger, I used to be completely terrified of the thought that an asteroid would hit the planet and make it blow up.
Wow.
I would spend time stressing about this. So my body was experiencing the stress. My mind was experiencing the stress. I was having trouble with sleep and my stomach. So everything was being affected by this level of stress over something I couldn't control.
Mm-hmm.
And when through my therapy that I went through for 22 years, learning that there are things that you can control and there are things that you can't control. And ultimately, the one thing we do have control over is our choices.
Yes.
And then there's even so much more that goes beyond that, because I walked away from that 22 years of therapy with what I call my box of light bulbs. So I had all of these wonderful things that I had learned, which was the light bulbs, but I still needed a way to light them off. I didn't quite know how they fit in life. And over the last year, I have learned what those things were and lit off each one of those light bulbs. Now I'm working on a new box of light bulbs, because one thing I've discovered is that the more I learned, the less I knew.
Yes. Complete unlearning.
Yeah.
You're a forever student. And it's just like, how do I want to show up in my life? And how do I want to, learn and impact people and, have the most impact, that I was put on this earth to have.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, that leads me to my next question. When you were young, when you were little, what did you want to grow up to be?
I wanted to be a teacher. So I
Oh,
would play in my room and I had a little chair and a chalkboard and, and it's amazing because I'm a teacher, but not in the traditional sense, right? So things still show up in your life in that way, but not maybe the way you perceive that they would. So I teach yoga and I teach meditation and I work with people to bring them back into balance and alignment when they aren't, and bring them back to their natural state of being so that they're not disconnected. And it's mind, body, spirit, not just one piece or part of you, working with your whole body, you as an entire being, and not just, when you go to a clinic, they're helping you physically, but they're not helping you with the rest of it. And you're more than your physical body. So it's, tending to all of you.
that's beautiful because that's what I'm about. Whole body spirit, whole body health, mind, body,
Yes.
and spirit being in alignment. And I may not work on the physical health like a physician, but I work on the spiritual health and the emotional health, which will help bring the physical health into alignment with the rest of the body. It's a complementary system. The way I see it is that we all have our part to do, and so I'm glad that you brought that up because we do seem to forget in Western medicine and some other medicines that we're one part. The brain doesn't walk around by itself,
No.
and the spirit doesn't walk around by itself. And then the body over there, it's all one thing. And when it's in alignment and all three are experiencing the positive energy, the health,
Yes.
that things are really in flow and are able to allow the person to make those choices that empower them.
Yes. I mean, that's what we're all seeking, we all want to be healthy, vibrant beings. And when we're not, then, it's really time to take pause and to notice where you're out of balance and to know how to bring yourself back into balance. You need the yin and the yang. It's not one or the other. And for so long, I was just a fiery yang little spirit who just was go, 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 do, 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 and thought, what is slowing down? What is going to lying on a bolster do for me? It did everything for me. It was precisely what I needed because I was too much at the opposite end of the spectrum.
Mm, yeah, that's a good point. And I know I was there myself, but this kind of leads back to what you were saying about your chapter in the book and, all of these things that my chapter as well, the difficulties that we experience and leading us into lessons that we learn from and emerge into a newer, more powerful version of ourselves. And it also helps us see other people through that lens of innocence and through their own difficulties. I think and that helps us connect with people.
Yeah. It's not, one of the things that I learned in yoga was, you don't climb over the brick wall and eat all the fruits yourself over the wall. You sit on the wall and you help others, and I could have, COVID was a pivotal transitional time for me because all the studio was closed and all the rest of it. And it was like, okay, what do I want to do with my life? And it's like, this is what has transformed my life. This is what people really need if they're struggling with infertility because they're not receiving this from Western medicine. And this is truly what helped me. And, having that time and space to realize this is how I want to move forward. And this is how I want to help people.
Well, this is a perfect segue into my next question, which is, what is it that got you onto the path that you were on today?
I feel like my path chose me, and it chose me for a reason, and it chose me for a purpose, because I was on my mat when I had the most awakening moment of my life. And it was, I was unconsciously creating the very thing in my life that I didn't want. I was creating my own infertility. And, I was able to then see that. And it really was a moment of pause and reflection. And it was like, wow, I really need to let some things go. And as soon as I did that, as soon as I surrendered, I energetically felt like decades just leave my body. I can't even put it into words, that experience, but, I did emerge an entirely different person. And once, what was seen could not be unseen, and there was no going back. And I'm no longer that person. And I'm grateful I'm no longer that person, because I created so much more suffering and struggle in my life than I needed.
Yes. And I think that's a really good point, that, stepping back and kind of reflecting on the past. It's okay to reflect. And I think this is a point that I've brought up in a few different conversations, because it's one thing to look back and reflect and not allow it to determine your future.
Yes, it's so easy. And I was so stuck and stagnant in that place for so long. And it was like, this is what I needed. This is how I could shift that energy and move that. And, not be in that place anymore, because it wasn't a great place, and I was trying to help myself and I didn't know what else to do. And then, when I was ready, the teacher showed up, the teacher arrived, and it was like, okay, yes, I am just like an open vessel, like, and I'm just so grateful, because I truly did want to, move forward in a better, more peaceful, more calm manner.
You mentioned that you were experiencing your own fertility issues. Had you had children before you were experiencing that? And what did that look like for you? This may help others that are hearing this right now connect with you in that way, and understand maybe something that's happening for them.
Sure. So I was in my 20s when I couldn't conceive, and I thought, oh, I'm young and healthy. This will happen. Just keep going. Just keep trying. And there I was, just in denial. I was just in denial. And then finally, took the step to go to the fertility clinic, because that's all I knew what to do at that time. But I did make the commitment to myself that I was going, all in, and I was going to do everything humanly possible for this to happen, because then I could know that I tried with every fiber of my being. And I did eventually have twins, but it's not a route that I wanted to go down again. I didn't want to put my mind and body and spirit through that, because it felt like an outer body experience. The physical effects that I was experiencing weren't pleasurable. So that's why what I'm offering is holistic. There are no side effects to what I'm offering. There's only positive benefits. And, it's these ancient teachings and practices. And once I embodied and embraced them, I conceived naturally. I was the issue, and I found what my unexplained infertility was. And it was like, okay, release that and move forward.
Well, that's incredible. I think back to when I was working to become pregnant with my third child. It was 9 years before that happened.
Wow.
When I reflect on that period of time in relationship to what you were just saying, it was very much about being in my head and putting the energy in the wrong place.
Yes. It's really what I found so powerful, impacting, was just shifting that locus of control, right? From external, there's nothing I can do, the doctor said to do this, it didn't work. I tried, and going into a place of hopelessness versus there is so much that you can do for your mind and body and spirit every single day, and it doesn't have to be all you do, but by simply, taking some time for you every single day, you can absolutely change your life. It can absolutely be what you want it to be.
Wow. Yes. And I just want to add that, yeah, it was pretty entertaining because then when I did finally become pregnant, it was actually my friends in my college class that told me. I didn't even know it for myself, but they could see it. So it was interesting how the energy shift came into being at that particular point. So is, getting out of the head, just for me was a big difference. And I can see how what you do helps people, bring a whole new different way of bringing that holistic approach. So that's beautiful. And that kind of leads me into my next question, which is, what is your superpower?
My superpower is my compassion. I really just feel for people so much and, know what they're going through and can see what they're going through and just have a loving, kind heart that is like, I can help you and you don't have to, you don't have to stay in that place, you don't have to. And for the longest time, I was too proud, and it's still something I have to work with every single day, to ask for help and to not see that as a weakness or a flaw or that I'm less than or any of those things, because I think that's really common.
Yes, it is. You completely resonated with me. I am still working on being better each and every day at asking for support. It was something that I learned over a long period of time, was to be self-sufficient, which I saw as don't ask for support, because if you do, you're weak. And I also kind of experienced what I perceived, and I understand now, getting back to those thoughts in our head that keep us stuck. At the time, I perceived it that if I asked for support, people left my life. And so not only did I see it as a weakness, but I saw it as a threat. So I began a process of teaching myself to get through things without asking for support, but being the source of support for others. And over the last year, I realized that there is an important aspect to being a good receiver as much as a good giver.
Yes. And I think that's so common with, heart-centered people is, it's all about giving, but it's like you have to be open to receive as well. Like it goes both way, and energy like works both ways. It can't just be one way or one-sided.
Right. It's the yin and yang of energy. So it's got to flow. Getting back to that little message I received a while ago, which is stay in the flow.
Yes.
I think it helps relax the body more. You're able to bring your thoughts, shift them from being stuck in your head and moving them more through your body, creating that flow. The more that you open up to receiving.
Yes. And I also, one of the instrumental things that I learned was, to not view things as good or bad. They just are, and to not resist all the feelings and emotions that I deemed as negative, and that is part of why I was struggling so much to conceive, was because, I didn't acknowledge or deal with the sadness or the guilt or the shame or any of the other emotions that I was experiencing at the time. And, just push them under the surface. I would take one day of off work and nobody knew why. And it was, silent and secret. And I just suffered silently. And that didn't serve me and it didn't help me and it didn't make my process any quicker.
Yes, you bring up a good point, that we have a lot of self-judgment.
Oh, definitely.
A lot of self-judgment, and that is definitely disempowering, to say the very least. It's not good energy, and it's unfortunate that there are a lot of different aspects, and this is one of the things that I help transform as well. And I want to touch on the word surrender here, because what we're talking about is actually, surrendering ourselves to the receiving, and surrendering ourselves to being judgment free of ourselves and the judgment of others. There are stigmas out there, and the way that we change those is by being free of that judgment. And for each and every person, each and every moment that makes a decision not to allow judgment to affect our decisions and our choices, we are shifting that for the better. And this past year, and including the book, surrender has been, even though it wasn't my word has been unstoppable, but surrender had kept coming up over and over. You need to surrender, you need to surrender. And I'm going, I'm imagining in my head that this is a white flag. Okay, you win, and of course that's not a good energy. And
yeah, that's not the case. Often surrender can be like seen as given up, and that's not the case, and that's a learning as well.
oh boy, yes it is. And but once I stepped into understanding, and I can remember the conversation, and it had nothing to do with surrender at all. It was a different conversation, but it connected for me, was that it's not about the white flag. It's about what lessons we came to learn, what we were to gain from those lessons, and then stepping into our purpose going forward.
I love that. It's beautiful.
Thank you. So we're starting to come up toward the end of our time. Would you mind sharing with the audience exactly what it is that you do and how they can reach out to you?
Sure. So I work one-to-one with clients, so it's customized. I work with you and your cycle as you're moving through this in real time to give you the energy medicine that you need to receive to help you in the process of conception. So if this speaks to you, and 1 in 6 people, well, I'm in Canada, but the stats are high. So many people, if you are not experiencing this, you have someone in your world who is. So they can join the Holistic Fertility Coach Facebook group, just a community of supportive individuals going through what you are going through at the same time. And to know that you're not alone, and that there's a community of people that are non-judgmental and welcoming you with open arms.
That's fantastic. So they can reach out to you on Facebook?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, then that leads me into my final question that I ask all my guests. And that is, what is one thing that you would tell your 18-year-old self?
To trust. To trust that you are exactly where you're meant to be, when you're meant to be there, how you're meant to be there, and that everything is unfolding exactly as it is meant to. And to surrender.
I like that. Yes, trusting ourselves. That's a big step for a lot of us, and we don't even realize how much trusting in ourselves shows up.
Yes, that was my experience, right? The longer I was experiencing infertility, the more I didn't trust my body, the more I didn't believe in it, the more I lost faith in it. And yoga and meditation allowed me to get back into my body, to be able to believe and trust my body again, because I had lost that. And, I broke through that limiting belief that I couldn't conceive without using a fertility clinic, and that's precisely what it was. It wasn't a truth, it was a belief.
Yes, and our beliefs can get us into so many troublesome spots. And it's just wonderful to be able to, talk about all of these different shifts and transformations that you help people with, that I help people with. I use my power of, transformational art combined with life coaching to help people. And our goals are very similar, though. And that's to help people, achieve those things that they want in life, those dreams, those desires, and those goals that light them up inside, that maybe, they've had since early childhood, and the light's kind of dimmed as they've come along through adulthood, especially, when we become parents or when we have a high level role at work. So many people in their careers, even if they don't have children, it's like having children, right. Because the work is always there, and they're always thinking about it. And that, I'm sure, plays a role as well in fertility issues, if I'm not mistaken.
Stress is not good for us on so many levels, for our health and well-being overall, right? It impacts us, and we all know that. But are we noticing how it lands in our body? And are we noticing like what we're carrying from day to day and moment to moment? And can we shift away from that and bring in more balance and alignment into our life?
That's so fantastic. Yeah, it really is about that balance. We get back to the whole body health and how important it is to be mindful, but without being in the mind. So
yes,
because we hear these terms come up a lot, and I think about the audiences that listen to all of these new podcasts, that we've been so blessed to be able to put out. And there's a lot of us that are reaching out, and we say mindfulness, but get out of your head. And it's kind of like, I was thinking about that moment when I really didn't understand surrender. And I struggled with getting out of that mode of fighting the universe.
Yeah.
Because I didn't understand what surrendering really looked like. I asked people that I thought, okay, that person has got to have surrendered, so please share with me. And then, of course, it just didn't work.
Yeah.
It was that moment that it lit off for myself, that nudge, that aha, the little light bulb, as I was mentioning earlier, that finally went correct, like the game Operation when his nose lights up. It's like, Buzz, yes, that's it. You've won the prize. And, but I love those moments. And I know that we both love helping people have those moments for themselves.
For sure. I think one of the most, enlightening moments for me also was, as many times as you've heard a yoga teacher say, move with your breath, flow with your breath, and all of these things. It wasn't until I was actually pregnant outside in a labyrinth, and I was so mindful and aware of how I was moving, because I needed to be, that I felt like I breathed for the first time, and it actually landed, and I actually understood, because until then I hadn't actually embodied it. It was like, yeah, I hear you, I'm doing it. It was from an ego place. And it's those enlightening moments that truly change you and shift you.
Wow. That is such a good point. Breathing. I have asthma. I have severe asthma and I have COPD. And somebody said, well, do belly breathing, because I've read a lot about people not truly breathing deeply. And
Yes.
this is actually
Most people, and when you're stressed, you're breathing just into your chest. You're just breathing shallowly, and breathing into your belly is so powerful. That alone, just doing that every day, so powerful.
And I remember the first time somebody said, breathe, belly breathe. And I'm like, what does that mean? And they go, well, if your, belly is going out when you're breathing in, then you're belly breathing. Your shoulders don't come up. It's a different space. It took me some practice, and I knew I didn't know how to breathe.
Yeah.
Yes, we do the involuntary action of taking a breath, but that's different than breathing and actually getting oxygen into our full lungs and opening them up all the way. And
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for learning that. It has made a lot of a difference.
Yeah, your breath is your life force energy. That is what is sustaining you. So it's so important. It's so important. And we don't think of it. And it's like, that is your number one go-to. If you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling anxious, or whatever it is in your life, take a conscious breath. That in itself is like a sweet mini meditation, right? To actually be aware and be like, okay, and release the breath. And it's like, whoa, even just doing that, consciously, because most of the time we're operating unconsciously, going through our day, just not paying attention, not being mindful.
Oh my goodness. Absolutely. And that's the one proactive behavior I like to teach people. First and foremost, it's something they can take away at any given moment. And that's to take that deep breath when things feel overwhelmed, when you feel stress, when that moment hits, and by the way your body's responding, by the way your mind's responding, take a breath.
Yes.
Just breathe. Oh my goodness. Well, we are at the end of our time together, and I cannot thank you enough for being here with me today and sharing you and what you do with everybody and myself and the world. And is there anything you would like to say in imparting today?
My last sentiments would be, your health and your happiness are in your own hands always.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Transformational Art with Katana. If you enjoyed the show, please click the like button and share the link to this podcast with your family and friends. To connect with me personally, please send an email to transformationalartwithkatana@gmail.com. Have a beautiful day.